Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to be doing a full face of my Holy Grail makeup products. So when I think of Holy Grail products, I think of ideally products that I've loved for several years. So I have tried to pull a lot of products that I definitely have loved for several years. If I didn't have something that I've loved for years, for that particular category, I have pulled my absolute favorite product from that category. But let's just get into it and I can explain my choices as we go. Let me zoom you in. All right, so let's pin the hair back. I feel like my skin is feeling a little bit stressed out today, but I do want to start with my eyes first. And the eyeshadow primer, I definitely swear by. There are quite a few. I love the Milani eyeshadow primer. I think that's a good one. I used to really enjoy the MAC Painterly Paint Pot, but for the last few years, I have really loved the Alter Ego eyeshadow base. This is just one of my absolute favorites. I have said this many times, but I have dry skin, but very oily eyelids. So I cannot get away with doing my eyeshadow if I do not lay down a good primer. If I don't need my makeup to last, I will sometimes just use a concealer, but if I want longevity out of my makeup, I definitely lay down a good primer. And I do have a Holy Grail powder in here, but I am just going to use my Pat McGrath Under Eye Setting Powder to set this down. This is also a favorite of mine. I mean, you can see she is pretty low. So when it comes to eyeshadows, I definitely do have a couple of brands that are my absolute go-tos. They're my absolute just favorite brands for eyeshadows. My top two are definitely the YSL Couture Clutch Quads and the Natasha Denona formula. Natasha Denona's had my favorite formula for several years, and a palette that I've also been talking about for several years is the Mini Biba palette. So I did think about pulling out the I Need a Nude because I do love that one, and I think if I had to get rid of all my palettes and only keep one, it would probably be that one because it does give me definitely more range than this. But the palette that I have loved and always come back to no matter what has always been the Mini Biba. I actually thought this came out in 2022, but I looked up my review video and this actually came out at the end of 2021. So I posted my review on Christmas Eve 2021. So I've actually been loving this for close to 3 years. This is actually one that when I first reviewed it, I was kind of lukewarm about it. And I regret that now because it's become my favorite palette. So I am going to start with this shade right here. This is just such a perfect palette for me. It's such a flattering color story, especially for my fair skin. I love reaching for this so much. So the day that I'm filming this video and what actually inspired this video is today is actually Black Friday. So I am feeling a little overwhelmed by all of the sales. I have been. I mean, Black Friday sales now essentially go all month long, but I have been feeling a little overwhelmed. And I definitely do pick up new launches as they release throughout the year to review. So there's really absolutely nothing that I need. Okay, now I'm going into the shade right here. I did order a couple of things during the sale, but they were all things that I have been wanting for quite a while. So I did order a couple of those things. I did place an order from Viseart, but not for the sale. So Viseart did release a small batch of new palettes for Black Friday. So I did order the 2 larger palettes that I will be reviewing, but I didn't really order any of their other products. I had initially planned to, but when I saw those, I thought this could be a perfect time to review those, and also the color stories of them were beautiful, so I grabbed those. They are currently only available on the Viseart website, but they did say that if there is enough demand, they might produce more and bring them to Beautylish as well. But I did just kind of want to enjoy my products today and remember that we can always play with what we have. That's always just as much fun. Okay, now I'm just picking up a little bit of this shade right here. This is the Cream to Powder, and just keeping this one right to that outer corner. It's very much a reddish brown, but it's very pretty. And for my favorite part of this look, we're gonna go into this shimmer. I'm just gonna pick it up with a finger. It's still so creamy too. This is just my absolute favorite shimmer in my entire collection. Nothing makes me feel as pretty as using this shimmer on my eyes because it's like a champagne shimmer, but it's also got like a peachiness to it. and I just find it so beautiful and so flattering and brightening. I just love everything about it. And even when I get thinking that maybe this isn't my favorite palette anymore because there are some that I love more, I go and play with it and nope, this is still my favorite. Same thing on the other side. I will say, like, when I first reviewed this palette, I gave it such a lukewarm review. I was like, it's fine, it's not that special. Some of the shades are kind of similar, it's true, but I don't know, something about this particular color story just makes me really, really happy. I love that so much. Okay, I'm just gonna go into that last shade on the end here. I'm just gonna sort of do a bit of a liner. I don't think I'm gonna do a wing with this or anything, but that is typically what I use this shade for, is just a liner. If you celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday, I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm in Canada, so I actually celebrate in October. See, just a little bit, just to give us a little bit of definition. Let me know down below, what are your absolute holy grail makeup products? What are your favorites that have just been favorites for such a long time? So even though I do test and review a lot of new makeup, I find favorite new products all the time. One of my tests that I always do is throughout the years I'm testing new makeup and I have new things in my rotation. Do I still reach for those old favorites? And if yes, then I know they are special. All right, the eyeshadow is done, and as always, this is one of my absolute favorite looks to create. For mascara, you might know what I'm gonna say, the YSL Lash Clash. I don't know how long this has been around, but I love this one so much. So I am gonna use this today. I am just going to quickly curl my lashes. I hate doing this part. Okay, let's go into the mascara. I don't normally do this part on camera because I don't like to, but I'm going to try it today. I do have a lot of mascaras that I have loved quite a bit over the years. The Thrive Cosmetics is definitely a favorite. I don't have that one. I haven't had that one for a while, but that is one I would definitely reorder. The Rare Beauty mascara is a favorite. The L'Oreal Lash Paradise, those are also really great mascaras. No matter what I do though, I always get my mascara on my lids and that annoys me immensely. I am also about to start filming my December end of year wrap up series, which is always so much fun, which I always love to do. But let me know what else you would like to see in the month of December, because I am definitely open to suggestions. And I, of course, want to film things that you want to see. So leave me all of your suggestions down below, what you would like to see from me. I'm gonna pop off camera really quickly just so I can clean up my mascara smudges, and I will be right back. Getting into the brows, I do not have a holy grail brow product. I just don't. There are definitely products that I've liked. There are definitely a lot of brow pencils that I've liked and things like that, but I really don't have an all-time favorite brow pencil or anything like that. For brow gel, the Rare Beauty. This is my absolute favorite. I love this. This locks in my brows. It keeps them in place without making them feel crusty and looking like they have a bit of dandruff in them. This is just a really, really great brow gel. This is actually my second tube, but I'm pretty sure I'm almost done with it. So my recent brow routine has been going in first with the NYX Lift and Snatch Brow Marker in the shade Auburn. I have been on a mission this year to find the perfect auburn brow pencil. This didn't used to bother me, but I used to be blonde, so blonde and taupe pencils were perfect. But now I need a little bit more warmth to my brows. And finding a good auburn brow product is actually very hard. I did try a Revlon brow pencil that I actually used up, and it was the absolute perfect shade, the perfect tone, everything. But the pencil was so creamy that you really didn't get a lot of control with it. And that was kind of frustrating. So then I got one from, I think, L'Oreal. And it's really not that auburn. I picked up the ABH Volumizing Brow Gel during the Sephora sale. And it's such a pain in the neck to put on that I don't think I like it. It's just too hard for me to get it right, and it takes way too much time. So I don't really love that, but I love the color of it. This NYX brow marker, there's something about these types of brow markers that I don't love, but this is actually a really great shade for me. So I have been using and liking this quite a bit. The color is really good, and my brows do look generally pretty good. One thing I have to remember is to let the marker dry before I go in with my brow gel. Otherwise, it's gonna turn a weird shade of purple. And while I wait for those to dry before I put in my brow gel, I'm going to start putting on a little bit of my concealer. If you've been here for a while, you know exactly the concealer I'm going for. This is the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer. This is my favorite concealer of all time. I already have a backup, just adding a little bit right here, out here as well. I just love this concealer so much. I have the shade N1 and it's a perfect match for me. I love that it is kind of a thicker concealer, but as you blend it out, it does get much thinner. So it doesn't sit heavy on the face. It doesn't feel heavy at all. It's just a really, really beautiful concealer, but it does give you a ton of coverage. It doesn't feel at all drying. It blends out like a dream. It just blends out like butter, and I love it so much. And this is the same thing with the foundation we're going to use today, because it's such a favorite that I will actively have to put it away so that I use other things, and then I'll be really enjoying the other products, but the second I come back to this, I'm like, nope, that's definitely my favorite. I don't think I mentioned either, I did prep my skin with the Refer Intense Hydration Cream. That is my absolute favorite makeup prep step. It's just the absolute best for my very, very dry skin, and it never ever lets my makeup pill, but it does give me such an intense boost of hydration. Brows should be good to go. I'm just going to add in my Rare Beauty brow gel. Again, this is the absolute best brow gel there is. So good for shaping and holding my brows while not making them crunchy or gluing them onto my face. I've never been a big fan of the laminated brow look. Just not for me personally. For foundation, if you have been here for any length of time, you probably know my favorite foundation, and that is the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation in the shade Mont Blanc. So this one is already down to here, and this is not my first bottle of this. This is probably my second or third. I love this foundation so much. This one came out, I think, at the beginning of 2022, and it's just been an absolute staple in my routine ever since. I would say the one weakness with this particular foundation is their pump. They do a really bad job with their pump. They're not high quality. So I am just going to grab a sponge, and I am just going to pick a little bit of that up. I just love this foundation so much. It's a really beautiful medium coverage. It has a radiant finish. It's not super, super glowy, but it is more radiant. But it's just so lightweight on the skin. It really just looks like you're having the best skin day of your life. One thing I will say too is I've been testing out this sponge recently because someone I saw in a video highly recommended this particular sponge. This is Real Techniques, but this is the blue one rather than the orange one. And so this is supposed to give you more of a soft matte finish. And this is also recommended that you use it dry rather than wet. And I thought, that sounds mighty convenient. Let's try it. And it's fine, like this is dry, but it is still very, very squishy and airy. And I do feel like it does give a nice finish to the makeup, but sometimes it does leave little bits of itself, like the little blue pieces on my face, and that kind of upsets me a little bit. But this is another thing that I've been testing recently that I cannot make up my mind whether I love it or I hate it. But do you see how nice that looks on my skin? It doesn't look like I have a super heavy coverage. You can see a bit of a glow, but it kind of looks like a bit more of a natural leaning glow. And it just makes it look like I just have perfect skin. I don't know, this foundation is just so, so good. I love it so much. And I do try other foundations all the time, but I always come back to this. Even when I think perhaps I found one better, I didn't. I know recently I've been constantly reaching for the Fenty Ease Drop foundation stick, and I do love that one. I really do enjoy that one. I'm actually almost done with it. I like that one because it's the best foundation stick I've ever tried, and I love it for convenience because it's so quick and easy to use. I don't need to worry about wetting my sponge. It's a little bit quicker to blend. I do just feel like this foundation just melts right into my skin and just makes me look like I'm just having a really great skin day. And it does look like it has a glowier finish, and I've definitely not been gravitating toward glowier finishes recently. I really do prefer more of a soft matte, but actually this just gives like a really beautiful natural radiance. It's a very, very skin-like finish, and I love this so much. For powder, this powder has put me through an absolute emotional roller coaster this year, but this is the Givenchy Prism Libre Loose Setting Powder in Satin Blanc. This powder is my favorite powder of all time, especially for my dry skin. For the longest time, several years, in fact, I did not use a loose powder because I don't like things that are messy. I just don't. So loose powders definitely are a little bit on the messy side. And I do have drier skin, so I prefer a pressed powder because it's just easier, it's quicker, and I really don't use as much. But this powder is so special. It really does just sort of perfect the skin so much. It mattifies, but not in an uncomfortable way. It just sort of smooths and blurs and just sets everything in place. I have been searching for an alternative because they did reformulate it this year, and I have found some really nice powders that I've really, really liked. Absolutely nothing is competing with this, and for the longest time everyone was saying how bad the new powder is. And then recently I've been hearing people say it's really not that bad. It's kind of the same. If you use it with a brush, it will look a little bit more highlightery, but if you go in with a puff, then it is more of a matte powder. I don't know how that works, but that did make me curious to try the new one. So I haven't picked up the new one yet, but maybe I just won't savor this one as much because I haven't used it since then because I've been so worried that once I run out, that's kind of it for me. So I am interested to try the new one, but this is just my absolute favorite powder. I am just going in with one of my little triangle puffs and just really setting those under eyes and my nose. Look how nice that looks. So somehow it does just go in and mattify and perfect and blur everything out, but somehow it does so without stealing the hydrated look of my skin. I haven't used this powder in so long, and I feel like now that I'm using this, actually, since I'm using all of these products, I feel like I'm about to have such a great makeup day. But I really am just so excited today to have a full face of my favorite makeup products that I've just absolutely been loving. For bronzer, the last several months, I have pretty much only been using the new Lancome bronzer, and I love that one so much. I think I will always love that bronzer, and that bronzer is definitely on its way to Holy Grail status. However, I've only been using it for 3 months, so I can't really say that it is a Holy Grail, but it's definitely on its way there. So just keep that in mind. So I am going back to an old friend that used to be my absolute favorite bronzer. Nothing in the world beat it, and that is the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is such an old classic, and it actually does have a lot of similar properties to the Lancome. They're both a perfect shade for me. They're both very buttery and blendable and easy to work with. They don't pull yellow. I have the shade Light Bronzer, so it's the lightest one. But I just love how they're never ever too much. The Lancome is more matte. This one has a bit more of a soft radiance, but you really can't tell once you put them on the skin. And I just love this bronzer. This one still has that heavenly smell. And this is actually a very similar tone to the Lancome too. This is just such a classic. It never ever lets me down. Obviously, I like it. Look at that pan. I did have it in a project pan maybe last year, the year before. I feel like this bronzer really, after all this time, after all of the new bronzer releases, all of the new products on the market, this one still holds its own. So that's got to tell you something. For blush, I had a very similar situation to my bronzer situation. I have been using the Patrick Ta Not Too Much blush exclusively for the last 4 months. If you're someone who looks at description boxes, you're probably about to give up on looking at my description box because I have the same blush and bronzer every single day. But I went back to some blushes that have been a favorite formula of mine for several years now, and that is the Pat McGrath blushes. I love these. There is something about the embossments she has in her blushes. This is the shade Flirtatious, and this is probably one of my favorite shades. I love the rose embossment in these blushes. I love the wear time. They look beautiful on the skin. They blend out beautifully. And I just really love these blushes ever since she came out with them. And even though Flirtatious is definitely my favorite shade, because I do have a more peachy look on the eyes, I kind of want to stick with that. So I'm going to go into this face palette here and go into Desert Orchid because I also really, really love that shade. And just start patting this one on to the cheeks. Just a very, very pretty everyday shade. All right, so that is the blush. So the highlight that I'm going to be using is actually in a face palette I have. This is from Charlotte Tilbury. This is the Instant Look of Love in a palette in Pretty Blush Beauty. I love this palette. And this highlighter is actually in her Film Star Bronze and Glow. So it's this highlighter right here, and there is a very significant dip out of this highlight because it's my favorite because it is so smooth. It gives a really, really beautiful glow, but it's so smooth. It's not at all glittery. You can build it up, but it's always going to give you just a really beautiful, sophisticated glow, sophisticated highlight. Like I said, this is in the Film Star Bronze and Glow, and I have wanted the Film Star Bronze and Glow for years, but I realized the only reason I would buy that is literally for this highlight, which I have in here. If I use up all of this, then I will allow myself to buy that, but right now I just don't need to. Okay, setting spray, absolute favorite, has not changed in a lot of years now. It is also from Charlotte Tilbury, and this is the Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. I love this so much. But this is my favorite setting spray. I always describe this as a perfect hybrid between the MAC Fix Plus and the Urban Decay All Nighter. It gives you the hydration of the MAC with the lasting power of the Urban Decay and doesn't dry you out. So I love that. For the lips, my absolute favorite Holy Grail lipsticks will always be the MAC lipsticks. Always. So I did just pull a couple of shades. More specifically, I pulled Modesty and Bravery. So these were two shades that when I still worked in the office and I wore lipstick, every single day I had to have a lipstick in my purse. And these are the two shades that I went through. So Brave, this is my second tube of this. And I mean, it's still pretty full, but this is my second tube of Brave, and this is more of a pink. And then for those more neutral, My Lips But Better days, my absolute favorite has been Modesty. And I mean, that's all that's left of her. So she's definitely seen some better days. So I want to use her today. I also don't really have a favorite lip liner formula. I have some that I really, really do love. I love Charlotte Tilbury. I love Natasha Denona, but I really don't have a favorite. So I'm going to go with the formula that I've loved the longest. And that's just the NYX pencil lip liners in the shade Nude Suede Shoes. I don't know if they even still make this anymore, but I do like this. So I am going to slowly put this on. This is one of my favorite nude lip liners. This is such a creamy pencil liner, but it's not so creamy that it moves around and it bleeds everywhere, but it's not dry where it tugs the lips. It's just very, very comfortable. It almost kind of dries down like a gel liner. Going in with Modesty, the tiny little bit I have left. And this has always been my perfect My Lips But Better lipstick. All right, so this is the completed look, and I love it. There is no better feeling than just doing a full face of your absolute tippy top favorite makeup. You just know it's gonna look great, you know it's gonna feel great, you know it's gonna perform well, and I love it so much. I will always love and have the best time playing with new makeup, but there is something so special about a full face of your absolute favorite products. So that is it for me today. Let me know down below, what are some of your absolute favorite Holy Grail makeup products that you do not want to be without? And also, if you could let me know what you want to see from me in December in addition to my year-end wrap-up series, ranking all of the makeup I tried this year. Let me know what else you'd like to see because I can definitely do that. I definitely want to try to incorporate even more videos on my channel in December. Definitely not committing to Vlogmas. I do have 2 jobs outside of YouTube, so I definitely cannot commit to that, but I do still want to try to sprinkle in some extra content if I can. So let me know down below everything you want to see from me. Thank you so very much for being here as always. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!